That's great. You're all on mute, so we're not going to have all these sounds clashing. So, first of all, I mean, anyone who's been on one of these before, it's just to lay a few kind of ground rules down. I'm not really sitting here as a kind of teacher or anyone who knows anything more than anybody else who's here. So, I'm kind of on equal footings with everyone, and we're all exploring this thing, whatever it is that we're involved in. And it's kind of difficult to come to some of these things. And, the thing that always kind of not frustrated me, but kind of confused me with some, kind of spiritual teachings and the likes of, was that there's a lot of kind of, how can I put it, think positive and all will be okay mentalities. And whilst I completely agree with thinking positive and creating the context in your life which creates positive outcomes, it's difficult to look out in the world and really feel that there's kind of a wellspring of change, a wellspring of transformation, especially this week, all of the horrible events that have taken place on the global scale. And so what I'd like to do is kind of just talk for a little bit and then maybe just go into exploring the experience, that this guiding light experience. So we get to sort of tune into what's happening within ourselves, and then we can come to a point where solutions, possibilities, different contexts, different viewpoints become fecund for us. So that's the aim of this. The other aim of this is to facilitate in some way what I can call a flowering, a flourishing, and the flourishing of our human experience. You could say our personalities, our personas, our presence in the world. And I was thinking about this the other day when, I was kind of out on one of my kind of marathon runs that helped to kind of open me up to all kinds of different things. And it kind of dawned on me when I was running in these beautiful woodlands near where I live in the UK, in Bristol. And these woodlands, they're called Lee Woods, and they're just such a magical place. I mean, just the whole atmosphere of this place is so beautiful. And it struck me as I was kind of traveling through this landscape that, we're not so different from trees and plants. And I think we've even got, our DNA is not so different from grass or something. It's something crazy like that, if you start to, we're not so different from a pear or something. So, but it really struck me that, during our human experience, our life, just untrapping people from the waiting room, we really are here in a sense to flourish. That came through, and what do I mean by that? To bear the fruit of the possibilities that we have, our human potential, our human possibilities. And we show up in these lives. And really the main focus of what I'm going to talk about here is kind of language, and how language itself is the creator of reality. And like I said, you don't have to agree with anything I'm saying. These are just possibilities that I'm putting out here. Now, I'd like to make a distinction between language and communication. So, for example, animals communicate with each other. However, they don't have language as such. So, for example, when we say something is a tree, the word tree is not a tree. It points to something. in the physical world. It's an energetic pointing. And another way of looking at this, you could say that language gives birth to time, and that time itself is a construct of language, and you can go further and say, well, actually language is thinking. So without thinking, there isn't really language. So language, thinking, comes into existence through the birth of language. So for example, when we're just little tiny tots, little kids, we're not using language. We're having language placed upon us. We have an imposition. We are born literally into a context of the culture that we're born into. We're born into the country, the language that we speak. So we don't decide whether we're going to speak English or Spanish, or, you know, we arrive in that context. And it's an already happening situation. So if you look at very small children, you kind of start to get a sense of how we become immersed in a particular way of being, a particular way of being orientated into life. And I'm going to suggest that the particular way that we're orientated in life gives rise to enormous discomfort and discontent and all of these different things that we see playing out within ourselves and then in the world in general. So, for example, when we're very small, if you were to say, well, you know, even the language structure we use when we're very young. So we'd say, like, David wants a cookie, or David wants the toy. So there's kind of David, and then there's the thing that seems to be observing David wanting the toy as the small child. And then at some point, this identity, someone telling us our name, and this is you. And at some point, we kind of fuse with that, and it gives rise to this personality. And then this personality shows up in the greater scope of things, the personality of the culture. And so we find ourselves with a kind of discomfort. And the thing that I'm suggesting here is really that we end up immersed in a forgetting. And this forgetting is really a forgetting, you could say, of our true nature, of original magic, and all of these different things, the ways of looking at it and ways to label this. So I'm going to suggest here, just for the fun of it, that our true nature is one of radiance and one of joy and one of evolution, movement. So you could say that another way of looking at this is that there's the radiance, the spiritual light, the light of consciousness, and that moves out into a kind of vibration or a frequency that then turns that light into form. And then the further on from that, it goes into the physical structure, the body. And the body is really feeling. And feeling then goes up into this next layer, which is the thought, the layer of thoughts, concepts, the intellect. And then beyond that, we have the cultural layer. And then maybe there's other layers beyond that. But these layers that I've just described are key to how we are orientated in the world. And I'm going to suggest again, like with this thing of language, that communication and language are actually, there's a differentiation between them, because an animal doesn't seem to worry about the future. So in thought, in language, time is born, and then the possibility of creating a future. So we live into a future. And for the most part, the future that we're living into it's not, well, first of all, it's not real. There is only this, the isness of where we're at. So the future is a construct in our imagination. It's a constructed something, energy. Yeah, not sure what happened there. So as we come into that, and that energy itself of time, of future, of something happening in the future, starts to become stronger as we get older. We go into, from the small child into bigger child, into the teenager, into the young adult. And this idea of time, this idea of us being constricted, there's a constriction. So you could say there's the fall from paradise is the fall into time, and the fall into us being aware of us in time. And the forgetting, this process causes the forgetting. And the forgetting is the forgetting of our natural state. And this forgetting, I'm suggesting here, is the cause of our suffering. Because we don't know who we are. And even worse than that, we don't know that we don't know who we are. So this solution, this I, this persona that arises in thought, in language, then finds itself in the game of life. And its seeming purpose in that game is to try and feel complete, is to try and become something, to complete itself. It feels like there's something missing. Like it needs to complete itself. It's not enough as it is. There's something off. And I think we all sense this, that on some level it feels like, you know, the world is off kilter. And what I'm offering here, it's really not rocket science. It's super, super simple. But it's so simple that we don't want to see it. It's almost like we've become blind to the possibility that, I'm not going to call it a solution, but the answer to, you could almost say everything, the answer to the discomfort, the answer to how we can find ourselves in the world and feel alive and feel as if we're flourishing, like I said earlier about plants. So the purpose of what I'm offering here, it's not to convince you of something. It's not to bring you into a program or anything like that. There's actually nothing for sale here at all. And there's just really a movement, an urge to share this, because I've found doing what I'm suggesting here and what we'll be doing in just a moment has radically transformed my life. And I talk a lot about the idea that there are many, many different ways to orientate oneself in reality. And for the most part, we're generally just stuck in the one that we're given. And I also speak about other cultures and distant languages that didn't orientate us in the same way in time. There were, for sure, languages and ways of showing up in the world that actually constantly reminded us of our actual nature, our true nature, the radiance within us. They actually reminded us of this. And it wasn't like they were kind of, you know, oh, by the way, you're the radiance. Oh, by the way, every other word was, it was in the very nature and structure of the syntax of the language, the songs, and the movement. And I'm going to suggest that the body itself is the way in to this greater possibility. And in our culture, what's happened to so many of us is that we've become what can be described as almost calcified in a particular position. So a particular position in terms of how we orientate ourselves to the world, and a particular position how we orientate our body. You know, and quite often the position that we see now is kind of, you know, looking at these things. So this really is kind of the invitation to move in a different way through life, to literally move differently through life, to angle yourself in ways that allow your whole being to open up, to experience yourself as something that has been potentialized. And I talk a lot about this idea of potentialization because I believe that each one of us has, I mean, it almost sounds kind of a cliche, like everyone's got a potential. But I don't mean it in that conventional sense. I mean it that we have a potential in our encoded, encrypted, born into us to experience life on an incredibly vast level. And in a sense, there's a saying that if you only hold up a thimble, even if the whole ocean fell on your head, that's all you'd get. And there's a vast ocean of possibilities. There's a vast ocean of ways to experience reality. And there's a whole vast ocean of ways that we can show up in the world and create in the world. And I'm going to suggest that the reason that we say, I mean, this is just a suggestion, and I'm not quoting the Bible or anything like this, or trying, I'm not, by the way, I'm also not apologizing for being spiritual. This is totally spiritual, and I'm not going to say, because sometimes I'm kind of tired of people saying, oh, by the way, this isn't as spiritual, you know, like they're going to scare everybody off. Or this is about spirit. This is about magic, original magic, real magic, the magic of living into a mystery that we have no idea what it is. And yet here it is, it's magic. What could be more magical? What could be more spiritual? So this is a spiritual, magical opportunity, evocation on all our parts. Yeah. So really, it's this whole thing of being able to orientate ourselves in our lives so we experience things on a heightened level. We have a high quality of experience. We get to see life through the eyes of something magical. So it's no accident that I've got eyes in the background, actually taken from David Bowie's eye. What could be more? What could be better than that? The eye of the Starman. So this, getting back to this forgetting. So we find ourselves kind of immersed in a life where we seem to have problems and challenges, and there's things go on, and the world doesn't seem to do what we want it to. And we feel agitated when that happens. There's an agitation. And this possibility that I'm offering here is kind of an elixir, a balm for that agitation, that discomfort, that dis-ease that plays out pretty much in everyone. And like I've said many times, it's not always completely overt. Sometimes it just sits in the background. But there's an uneasiness. There's a sense that, like I said before, there's something off about life. Now, this, what I call the guiding light, is original magic. It is the light of spirit, the light of consciousness. It's a wonderful, beautiful mystery. And the suggestion here is that we can reference reality from that. And this idea that we need 70,000 thoughts to maneuver through our lives every day is a misconception. And that most of our lives from the get-go have been constructed through assumptions. And I think I said this on the last one. Actually, I think I said it. I said this on the last one, that so much, or if not all, of what we take to be true and real is actually provisional. They're assumptions. And it's not easy to say this, especially in the world that we find ourselves in, but you could say being born is an assumption and dying is also an assumption that appears in that layer of thought, that layer of conceptual, pragmatic thought, conceptual thought, the arrow of time. And another way of looking at this is you could say, well, the arrow of time was released at our birth, but it's always going to hit the target. I heard someone talk about this actually earlier on, and that's where I got that analogy from. Can't remember their name now, but they were beautiful way of putting it, is that no matter what goes on in the flight towards the target, we're always going to hit the target. The target seems to be death. Yeah. So the thing here is that on that journey in between, how do we come alive? How do we live fully? How do we express this aliveness in us in a way that brings the world to life? It brings life to life. The underpinning of life is creativity. It's creating all the time. It's one movement, a universe, one movement constantly creating. And the source of that creation, I'm saying, is, again, this is another concept, but it is light and illumination, a radiance. But the quality of this radiance, this illumination, this electrical being that we are, is an intelligence. And that intelligence is an intelligence born from love, unconditional love. It's an intelligence born from freedom. There's all these different ways of saying it. However we say that, whether it's freedom, whether it's unconditional love, I'm going to suggest that we all, it's in us anyway, that there is something there. And I've worked with, and I've dealt with, and people have even come to me that are the most practical, scientific, pragmatic people you could ever imagine. God knows why they would come to me, but somehow sometimes they rock up on my doorstep for some of my coaching or guidance, whatever you want to call it. Often with men, it's normally that their wives have signed them up. So women are, pretty much ahead of the game on this one. Like my wife signs me up for all the things that tend to do me really good in this life. So the feminine energy, the feminine principle moves us towards these things. And even in this case, where someone is so rooted in the asana of science, for example, there's still something there that seems to inform them that there's an essence of something. And this essence of something has a quality to it. And I'm going to put out here that the quality of this radiance is intelligence, it is creativity, or qualities of this, yeah? And we can live from that. And this kind of transition, you could call it, or switch over or whatever, it's not like we have to work hard at this for it to happen. It's not that we have to, this again is another story, you know, because we've been told that we have to meditate for 30 years, we have to study all of these different things. But really the answer sits right here, right now. And all we need in order to get to it is to notice what's going on. So why don't we just do that now? Instead of me theorizing about it, we can just try it and see what happens. So I'm not going to say sit comfortably, because if you're not sitting comfortably already, then you know how these things go. In meditation practices, they always say, make yourself comfortable while you've already been sitting there for half an hour. But right now, you don't even need to close your eyes. You don't need to, but if you want to, you can. You don't need, this isn't meditation. I'm not saying meditation isn't useful or anything, but this isn't meditation. This is what is so. So as you are now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you just can place your attention, or even just search for this sense that you exist. Is there a sense that something exists? So just go there. However, there's no correct route to this, by the way. You can even play it out with me here on the screen, for example. You know, you can even say, well, how do I know that this person, this thing in front of me exists? You know, is there a sense that I'm present for something here? And this sense of existence, is it a vibration to start with? Is there a sensation? Is there, just notice what it's like to exist. And if you don't, some people say to me, oh, I can't find that I exist. And that's okay, because even just stopping for a minute and going there is probably kind of for many people, is quite radical, because during the course of the day, we just don't seem to go to the fact that we exist. And if you've gone there once, you can go there again. And if you can't find it, it doesn't matter. Make it up. And I'm going to suggest that the sense that you exist actually does have a quality. And that quality is a kind of radiance. And that you can perceive that. And for some people, it might be kind of just a sense that when you just gently close your eyes. You might have to do that to block out some of the background. There's something radiating. There's a radiance. And I'm wondering if you can go a little bit deeper into that. And if you notice it, and I'm going to go back to this idea of the light of consciousness. We call it the light of consciousness. We depict it in all the ancient master paintings, the Renaissance. There's an illumination. And I'm going to suggest that this illumination is the transduced spiritual light transduced into universal light, the light that we can see with our eyes. And that light, that same spiritual light is in you too. It's in all of us. It's in everything. You could call it energy. But the first place to understand it, or not even understand it, first place to locate it is somewhere in it's like the body. And when you go to this feeling, when you go to this sense of your existence, you're heading towards your original nature. And the more you go there, what you'll discover is that it's pleasant. And then what you might discover is that from that pleasantness, you might start to sense where that kind of radiance is not flowing. So you might discover there's a discomfort in the body. You know, feel free to put anything in the chat if something comes up, if you can't find it or anything, or you know, if you sense that you exist, if you sense that there's this presence there, there's a presence, and we are presented. We give someone present. This is the gift, like a gift. And I'm suggesting here that it's always on. We are always on. And if you go more into this, some very amazing things start to happen with this simple, very simple beginning. So one of the things that, as you progress with this, you just do it whenever it comes to your attention, is that you start to notice that the world is in a kind of dynamic conversation with you. Brilliant. I'm just looking at comments here. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Very aware of how the brain feels, how aware of kind of, yeah, even like the sensation of weight, the idea of gravitas, you know, and to find ourselves immersed in this aliveness. So aliveness is another way of putting it. Now, getting back to, probably going on a twisty-turny path here. Getting back to this idea of referencing life from what I can call a radiant operating system rather than a constricted operating system or a limited operating system of thought. Now, with the thought, with the personality, with the persona, the more you start to go to this sense of you, that you exist, and you start to tap into the fact That's an interesting point, actually, from Liz there, saying the body feels hollow. It's kind of an emptiness. That's quite a common experience in a sense that in the beginning, it might seem like there's just space there. And then the more you go into that, that's when you start to notice that there is a radiating quality. And in some ways, even the words don't describe this the way I would love them to, because it is so much an experiential thing. It's not something that is constructed by thought. And it means that the body always guides us in the feelings come from the present moment. And then when those go up, you can often then start to trace a feeling going up and then translate it into thoughts and beliefs and ideas. And very often, what I was saying before is that you'll start to notice where there's constrictions in the body, where this sense of aliveness isn't moving, because it's a constant movement. And the solution, if there is a solution in that kind of language, is to place your attention on that discomfort, yeah, and move the radiance into it. Just using your attention, just move that radiance into it and allow yourself to be moved. So this is allowing yourself to get used to being moved. So very often, if not always, when we're in the process of creating, we're moved by something more than just us. We become available to life in a different way. And this simple, I say it's simple but not easy. This simple process, because it is a process, it's an unfolding. And to see that you can reference your life from a different perspective starts to create an openness in the physical structure to begin with. So what many people that go on this journey notice is that there may be an awareness of where there is kind of trapped energy in the body to begin with, and discomforts, often in the solar plexus, and often kind of around the eyes as well. When we look out at a world that we don't like the look of, we don't like what we see, and that translates into more discomforts. So as I said on the last call, what we're actually involved in here is a process of alchemy. So your life, your situations and circumstances, yeah, doing this, I always say I wish it was the case, and maybe I don't wish it was the case, but it would be wonderful that you did this and everything was ironed out and all the problems evaporated and you just woke up the next day in this sea of radiance where everything just flows into place. Now that, on some level, it can happen, and I've actually gone through periods where that has happened, and then it's gone away, and I've spent months, years hankering after it again and trying to come back to that. And again, that plays back into this idea that this persona is incomplete, so it's always trying to complete itself. but it can't ever complete itself. However, when this alchemy unfolds, when this natural alchemy, you start to reference your life from this different vantage point, viewpoint, context, then you notice that the world takes on a different energetic structure. And situations and circumstances become the material from which you have the material from which you can create from. So there's not this move for everything to control the world, to be kind of master of the universe, like we're all trying to be most of the time. There's a sense that the world is there to be experimented with, to be played with, literally to play with life. And something happens and it's not what you wanted, or it's not what you thought it should be. And the more you reference from this perspective, you don't jump into the thought. You end up with what I call a creative pause. So before that normal habitual way of dealing with things and showing up in the world comes through, there's a sense of space. And in that sense, that moment of space that just allows something to be what it is, in that flowers or flourishes, like this word of flourishing, a possibility for the situation that maybe wouldn't have been there under normal circumstances. So when somebody says something that you don't agree with, or that would normally make you feel annoyed or frustrated or sad, there's a kind of space that opens up, and in that space there's a space for this light, this intelligence to push through and move you in a way that all of those thoughts wouldn't move you. Because we're all very familiar with how thoughts shape our lives. And getting all the way back to language, it's coming back to how we reference our lives, how we construct collectively, again, in our languages. Yeah, we create the world. Yeah, and we create our situation in the world. And it's amazing how the more you do this, there is a kind of flowering of consciousness, and it creeps up on you in kind of unexpected ways. So it seems to actualize. It's like, how can I put it? It's like you fertilize life. And things that would not normally happen, situations, possibilities, opportunities, seem to present themselves in a different way. Because there isn't this sense of needing to control everything, because the intelligence, this intelligence, is what makes everything happen anyway. So if you're referencing from there, it's like you fall into a deep trust. And this trust, it's not blind faith. It's just that you're able to get out of the way and let life unfold, and able to respond to the things that happen in your life. And increasingly, you will respond from that radiance, from that way of moving in the world. And it moves to open things up. it moves to bring things to life. So you become more alive as a result of interacting with the world. And it all stems from that simple reference point. And it's nothing more. You don't need to do any more than that to begin that whole unfolding. Because as soon as you go there, and as soon as you go there again, it's like you are communicating and saying, yes, there's something that I recognize here. Maybe this, perhaps, this is who I am, and not all of the thoughts. Perhaps if I allow this to shape my life, and and this isn't new stuff either. This has been going on for many practices, all kinds of things, even the AA movement, that I hand my life over to a power greater than self. Now that can be anything you want it to be, but I'm just suggesting that on the simplest level, there's a light, an intelligence that wants to express itself through you. And it's covered over and forgotten by the mind, the thoughts, time, and normally worrying about the future. So even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I don't get this, or, is he talking about some quasi-spiritual thing, whatever? Like I said before, yes, of course it's spiritual. Everything's magic. I'm coming from that perspective. There's plenty of other people out there coming from different perspectives, and they may even get you to the same point. So really, it's just, I'm a particular flavor. I'm a particular dish on the menu. Now, for some people, the kind of idea of the artist, creative, magical, spiritual dish is appealing, and it will allow them to come to this with an openness and with an excitement and with an invigoration. For other people, maybe not. Maybe they need to hear this kind of thing from somebody completely different. And it doesn't matter. That's fine. However you come to this, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to suggest here again that the fact that you've showed up for this, the fact that you're even here, means that there's a desire for something here. There's a desire to move towards this, and there's a desire to set yourself free from, the low, whether it's low level anxiety suffering or high level suffering. There's all these different grades of it wherever you want to look, of course. And really my whole message is that we don't need to suffer through this life. We can create a life using this simple way of orientating ourselves to allow it to live and expand us. And I can even go into things as we move on with this, not tonight, but another time, how we can connect even more deeply with this principle of light, how we can use light, how we can work with physical light even, and the mystery and the magic of light, how that can bring us always more to life. So even just the fact that there is light is like a constant reminder that we're magical. It's constantly reminding us. When you go out, even look at the light from this screen that's illuminating me, is a reminder that we don't know what it is. It's a complete mystery. So science can tell us it's a wave or a particle and it does this and it does that, but it can't tell us what it cannot tell us what the actual experience of light is. The experiential thing of light can tell us some facts about it, but even those are just assumptions. We don't know what this is. We're traveling into something that is a mystery, and the fact that it is a complete mystery and nobody knows what it is creates this sense of magic that we can step into. And there's all different routes into it. So we start with looking and going in, and we feel that this sense of existence, we sense that we exist. We come to that point. Yeah. And we sense that that is not a blandness. You know, the more you go there, you'll sense that it's even maybe a geometry that then becomes a light, that then becomes something that is alive, and then becomes something that you can go there. And then you might notice that your vision starts to feel enhanced, that you start to see energy in the world, that light takes on a different meaning in the world. And the more you come to this, the more you open up to it, the more you get moved in unexpected ways. And the more you create with your life, the more your life becomes the process of alchemy, turning the situations and circumstances, the lead into gold. The raw materials of life into something, into actual aliveness, actualized aliveness. Now, whether you do that through art, whether you do that through movement, I'm suggesting you do it through everything. And getting back to the very kind of beginning of what I was talking about here, language, to become aware of how you use language, like our language corrals us into this way of being. And we need to sing more. We need to create movement more. We need to move in ways that are not rigid. So all of these things start to open up. And then the more you get involved in those things, the more you come to the point where life moves you. And it's not like you've kind of, it's a different feeling from someone trying to control you. This is a delightful immersion in your own life. And the more you do this, the more you realize that this is available, and it was always available. And at some point, what happens is that you become like the co-creator. This sounds like The Secret, doesn't it? But so it might not be an accident that some texts say that we were created in the image of God. So you could say that this creative principle is existence, reality, it's always creating something. And then through our presence, our life, we get to create too. We speak, we create things. So we're in the image of it. So we start to harmonize with it. And the more we harmonize with it, the more we realize that actually it's who we are anyway. So we're literally falling back into the arms of the Great Mother, as I put it. We're falling back into ourselves, into our own nature, through the actions of our lives, through the way we communicate, how we show up in the world, what we do, how we do it. And this isn't something that turns you into kind of, someone said to me the other day, they said, oh, you know, if I just do what you're saying, I'm going to become some passive idiot. You know, I'm just going to sit on the couch and I won't do it. You know, if I'm waiting for life to move me, then you know, I have to move. Like, it's totally the opposite. And it starts to wipe away the things that are causing so much limitation and so much discomfort. It starts to cleanse us of these things. And I'll give you an example. Throughout my life, one of the key things that's always troubled me so much is this sense of regret, of this looking at what I could have done instead. And thinking back to relationships that I might have had, business opportunities that I might have had, and spinning around on how I made the wrong choices. I made the wrong decisions. If only I'd said this, I should have said that. I didn't behave well in that situation. I was a fool when I did that. And the mind really, in the form of the punisher, just punishing me relentlessly. And I remember somebody said to me once, they said, you know, what's the point in worrying about the past? Because there's nothing that you can do about it. And then somebody else said to me, well, look, what happens there is that you gain experience from those things, of course, and it means that you don't fall into doing them again. Now, that's all very well and good, because that's all totally great advice and what have you. However, giving me great advice and didn't really seem to shift anything in me from, I would still find myself going back and saying, well, look, if I hadn't sold that house then, it was worth, you know, pittance when I sold it, and now it's worth £5 million. You know, I should have held on. Why did I do that? What a stupid move. If I'd not done that, I would, you know, and the mind goes on and on and on and on and round and round and round and round. You know, if I hadn't have said that to her, then she would have done this, and then that wouldn't have happened, and all of this. And then when I started to come to this sense, one day I was just kind of like minding my own business in a way, and just this real sense of like chronic pain all around here, around my chest area and down into my solar plexus. I was like really, you know, almost bent over in pain. And then I didn't move to do anything with it. And I noticed that actually in the root of that was this kind of light that was pushing this out of me. And as that pushed it out of me, I started to see all of these memories and all of these things came up in my mind that of where I'd created so much suffering just with these regrets. And each one sort of came up, and it was kind of burnt away by the light. And at the end of it all, it was like someone had kind of lifted this huge fridge off my back. And I just felt, oh, you know, that's gone. I don't need to consider behaving like that anymore. So it wasn't that I went through some big process and went to tons of therapists and did all of this kind of thing. It was just it came from the body, and it came from somewhere. It wasn't thought. I didn't think it through. I didn't rationalize it. It wasn't a logical thing. It just came purely from the body and pushed everything out. And I saw how the feelings, then these discomforts went up into the thought sphere and then materialized as these memories. And then I realized how I was storing all of this stuff in my body. And you know, this process has gone on and on and on, and I seem to be released more and more and more of these discomforts. And you know, it just on a purely physical thing, you know, my physical structure feels more alive, more flexible, more vital than it even did like 20, 30 years ago. So there's a real happening that takes place here, but it takes place in unexpected ways, and it doesn't always follow a linear path through. So the only thing you have to do, or you don't have to, the only thing that I would suggest is to just keep doing this, just keep going there. And then after a while, you'll start to notice this thing showing up, and it will make itself known more and more as you live into it. And really all I want for you is for you to have an incredibly high quality of experience, and for you to go out in the world and for you to live your life, and for you to not spread the message. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that as you discover more of this, and as it becomes alive more for you, you'll kind of want to tell people, because it's that thing of seeing, I see people stuck in these loops, and it's like, my goodness, you know, at what point, you know, how most people, the sad truth is most people will go through their whole life unaware that this absolute miracle sits at the root of who they are. I mean, really a miracle, absolute magical miracle is unfolding through them into the world. And we stop noodling around on petty grievances. We stop criticizing people in the way that the mind does, you know, because we see that they couldn't do anything other than what they've done, given what they've gone through and where they've ended up and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. So we stop living reactively in the world. It gives us an opportunity to, like I said, for the personality. So in one respect, the personality becomes like a fiction. It becomes something like, almost like an avatar that you're playing with. But it's done, it becomes delightful, and it becomes super interesting and fascinating to be in this kind of avatar, you know, and to move through this game, this world like a game almost. But in that, it's not a detachment. You become, you flourish. Whoever you want, whoever needs to come out, whatever needs to come out of you in terms of expression comes out. And it's given the permission and it's given the freedom to come out. Now, don't take my word for any of this. Please don't take my word for it. You know, this is an invitation and a suggestion, and I'm playing with life like anybody else. If you want to just get the bare instructions, you can go onto starmancreations.com, and you just go on there and you can download my book in, I think it's PDF, ebook or whatever, video and audio. And it's just basically the instructions about how to really go into it. But it's nothing more than I've told you, but it just goes into things in a little bit more depth if you need that, or if you need to even just have someone just talk you through it, you know, so you can just download the audio. And if it just serves as a reminder, then it's achieved what it set out to be. And like I said, there's nothing on the back of this, you know, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to convince you, I'm not trying to sell you this on any level. This is really a process of unlearning rather than a kind of, there's no curriculum. It's the curriculum of unlearning. But the more of us that can step into this, the more of us that can open to this possibility, then the world starts to change. And we can look out and say that the world's in a complete disastrous mess. But the only thing that we can really start to give some openness to start creating freedom is here. And the suggestion is that this, what I call the guiding light, again, it's a description and it's a way of looking at things. But you start to come into the world and you see the world as an energetic, it's almost like the language freezes light. Your words freeze light into something, object. So that's how objectified things are objectified, yeah? And you start to see that you are just flowing through this whole thing, yeah? And things crop up and you can respond to those things and you create with them. And you start to look for the opportunities to create with them. So another big thing that falls away is the sense of being a victim. So victimhood is a huge issue. It's almost like we start off from the get-go with a lack. Yeah, just in the way we're given these linguistic parameters. Just on a kind of funny level, we speak in sentences and we give people prison sentence, we give people a sentence. We have days of the week, so we're weak. We have days when we're weak, and then we have the weekend so just purely how we speak ourselves into the world starts to create, and what you notice is that these words, the more you do this guiding light process, this guiding light observation, activation, you'll notice words that come out of your mouth that are hollow. And you notice when you're not speaking from, so it becomes very evident where this greater possibility is living through you and where that's being shielded and clouded out by the realm of thoughts and ideas and concepts and beliefs, and assumptions. So you stop taking those things and you notice in the way that you deliver things that there's a different quality to how you can even communicate things, speak things into being. And when you speak to someone from that perspective, they can feel it. It's felt. When your actions come from there, they have a quality about them. And even the thoughts, you start to notice thoughts that have a vitality about them, that are functionally productive and even functionally joyful. And the other types of thoughts, the thoughts that would normally trap you in this kind of massive loop of fear and anxiety or unworthiness, take on a kind of dull quality. So they're not fed by the light. So you start to live this whole thing out. It comes to life. You come to life. This is what this is about. If we can't freaking live fully alive now, what are we waiting for? The opportunity I'm presenting is here now. And the only question really is, are you going to do it? And are you going to give it a go? Are you going to just, or is this just some, you could just make this another thing. You're here, you've given up your time. And I really appreciate you being here. But what I would appreciate even more is to just keep doing this and to notice that the things that you've been told and the things that we've accepted as so are all provisional. So even the idea that this world is a certain way and human beings are a certain, we don't know. We haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible as a human being. And yet our culture tells us this is the way, We don't know the way things are. We have no idea the way things are. Things just, we only have an idea of the way things appear to have shown up thus far. We don't know what's possible. We're already told that we're being superseded by AI. But we're the miraculous technology. It's here. What could be more miraculous than spirit technology? Who you are. So this idea that the culture downgrades the possibility is like Dionysus. I'll end on this actually, because I realize I've been going on for a while. So Dionysus, the Greek god of Dionysus, was downgraded to the god of wine or the god of inebriation. But really what that whole thing is about, the Dionysian principle, is one of ecstasy, ekstasias, to be risen out of one's own little self, to be placed in the stream of radiant life, the possibility of life, the possibility of joyful experience, of experiencing life on a high level. And the authorities, even like the Roman authorities, actually banished and outlawed anyone kind of, you know, connected to the Dionysian cult, as it was called. But you see, when you have a culture that disallows the ecstatic, you end up with addiction, you end up with violence. That will manifest itself as a twisted energy. So really what this possibility is about, you know, really getting to the core of it, it's saying that who you are, your natural nature, the very essence, who you truly are, is ecstatic. And this ecstatic thing wants to just be involved in life in a way that maybe you can't even imagine. So when you involve yourself in life, you almost go, oh my God, how am I here? How did this happen? I don't know how, you know, or I'm drawn to do that, or I want to explore that, or I want to move in a different way. I want to talk in a different way. I don't want to do the same old stuff that I've always been done. I want to let go of all of the stuff that I've carried through that served me not a jot. Even the way we educate children, you know, this sense of being kind of removed from the ecstatic. Now, the ecstatic isn't about getting drunk, and the ecstatic is about the scintilla of life, that you have life right between your teeth, that there's a sense of aliveness and excitement, and you're part of it. It's coming through you. You are the expression of it. You are the possibility of it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be getting up and running around doing this and doing that. It just means that even sitting in your chair is an opportunity, is a possibility, is a kind of enrapture, a rapturous possibility to experience your own presence in this life, however that is materializing for you. And what you will notice is actually when you become more involved in this, like I've said many times before to people that have attended my thing, when you become intensely interested in life, it becomes intensely interested in you. It's funny, it's a very dynamic conversation. A bit like this idea of light and the wave particle, that it doesn't actually collapse into anything unless it's observed. So it's like noticing that this core of radiance is kind of noticing that it is living, wants to live through you. And then once it notices that you notice, then it's almost like it gives it permission. It's like, yeah, okay, Now I'm seen, let's go. And you don't know what's going to happen. You know, whether you may go and meditate on a mountain or in a cave, you may start a business, you may create art, you might have deep and meaningful conversations with people that you've never had deep and meaningful conversations with. You may write something, you may start to share something with people, you may start to change how you eat, you might cook differently. It's just this thing. You don't know what is going to, but you do know that if you come into this, you're going to be more alive as a result of coming into this. Your life is going to take on a new quality. You're going to find a sense of, I don't even want to say meaning, because then that implies that there's something to be, it's like there's nothing to be had, but there's everything to be had. You come into a deep, magical paradox, and it's there to be lived, and the opportunities for everyone, you know, and that's the only reason that I'm here. I don't even know why I'm here. I actually don't know what moves me to sit here and talk about this, except the fact that just even the knowledge that it might come to somebody and they might find a way to express this from themselves just fills me with a sense of excitement that, wow, you know. So that's why I create art. Why do I create art? I create art because it carries that energy. It carries that possibility. For me, that's how I can, another way I can express it, just how I express it. Thank you, anyone. You kind of reminded me I'm going on a bit now, so I'm going to stop. But feel welcome to go off, download the thing. Like I said, Starman Creation. Just download it if you haven't. If you've already got it, then fantastic. If you do want to ask me anything, we could spend, what is it? I've been flowing on with this, but if there's anything that you feel you want to ask, just to spend 5 minutes, feel free to ask me. Anything comes up, just having a look in the chat now.
I just want to say thank you, David. That was wonderful, and you're absolutely inspirational. And that's all I have. I just want to say thank you.
That's kind of all I want, really. I just want you to go and live your lives and fill the world with possibility, fill the world with art, fill the, whatever that, I mean, I use the term art very broadly. You know, like I said, art can be just having a conversation with someone in a particular way and allowing that to come through. So, you know, and if you might want to kind of end up back here next week, I mean, there's people that come and go and people listen. I'm going to put this recording, I put the recording up on my YouTube channel. I don't know, I can't even remember what was it? David Starman, David with an E, D-A-V-I-D-E, Starman. That's my handle on YouTube. So if you key that in, that will come up. Join my YouTube channel. I post other videos up there about this. It's all about this, really. And the other thing that it's linked to is actually, brilliant, thank you for your comments. The thing that it's really also linked to is this sense of feeling that you are alive in the body as well. So it's amazing how the body starts to go to the possibility of healing things that need to be healed, of strengthening things that need to be strengthened, of giving you the direction that you can live in this world in a really, truly beautiful way, but also in a powerful way. So you become effectual. So it almost starts to mold you into something more effectual, which is really kind of like my 10 of Swords in the Starman Tarot. You know, like the swords come down and kind of get rid of the old way of being and give rise to a more effective, functional feeling, vital version of yourself. And that's the delight in this, you know, and that's kind of what I'm opening us all up to explore. I mean, I'm kind of just a student as much as anybody else, and I'm just sharing what's going on for me in terms of this exploration, and also going on in terms of other people that I've worked with and helped to move them through this as well. So that, you know, there's people that are now composing symphonies and doing all kind, you know, performing, creating art, giving speeches that, you know, it seems to have the effect of actualizing something that is really, I mean, I use this word again, probably meaningful, you know, but meaningful to you, yeah, and then meaningful to the world on a greater possibility. So, okay, I'm going to end now. Okay, where do we go for more information? Well, you can go to, like I said, my YouTube channel, which is, God, I should know this, shouldn't I? Like I said, it's David Starman. Why don't I just drop it in the chat? I'll drop my YouTube channel in the chat, so you can go there and connect with me, and you can also find more at, here we go, and you can, it's me chatting away there. Let me just drop this in the chat so you can go join if you wish. Haven't already. That's in the chat, hopefully. Oops, if it doesn't want to go in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, for some reason, my chat's not happening. Anyway, doesn't matter. The other place, starmancreations.com, you can see other stuff I've done there. You know, you can kind of see the result of following this kind of thing on there. And, you know, kind of also my Starman Tarot as well. That there's so much of this that's kind of built into that whole, the way that came about, and the whole thing really stemmed from this whole sense of coming back to one's own true nature. And Facebook, of course, Instagram, David, Davide, Starman on Instagram. I'm kind of often noodling around on there as well. So yeah, just hit me up, stay in touch. And I'm going to probably do another one of these next week. I'm trying to make these a regular thing if people want to just come. And, you know, sometimes just being in the energy of this space where, you know, you can express something. And maybe what I'll do next week is I'll talk less and we'll open it up a little bit more so we can explore things together. Probably these first two ones are more about me kind of just laying the territory and seeing whether that territory is interesting to people or has there's something there that makes people want to come to it and explore it. So next week probably will be a slightly different format, but I'll put it up on all the social media platforms and share it again. And I may even start doing these live on some platforms other than Zoom, which might make it easier for people to rock up. I don't know. So anyway, I'm just experimenting with it myself. So next week will be on Zoom again, probably. And then from thereafter, I might move that over maybe to YouTube Live or something like that. I don't know yet. We'll find out as we go along. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you very much for your comments. And, you know, just take this out there, and, you know, whatever's left of this week, it doesn't matter. Like we were saying, time's just a construct, of course. See if you can work this into the possibilities that are showing up for you, and see how that manifests for you. And just like I said, it all stems from that one point of existence, that one point, the point of actualization, you could call it, or the assemblage point, as Carlos Castaneda called it, where the world flows out from you. So do that. And like I said, if you haven't got the instructions, they're on starmancreations.com. feel free to download. There's no charge, nothing. You don't, it's all free anyway. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Big love to everybody, and hopefully see you on the next one. And we can, the other thing is, feel free to share this when I share it with anyone that you feel would benefit from these. Obviously, the more the merrier that can be in this space, and we can all experiment with how this comes to fruition for us together. And just to create a kind of energetic presence in the world for a higher possibility. Heaven knows we need it at the moment. So yeah, just really would be wonderful to do that. So if there's anyone that that would benefit, please send them over to, like I said, to my YouTube channel, or next one I offer out. Just feel free to share it with anyone that you feel would benefit from kind of hanging out in this space. So until the next time, big love, have fun.